So, Jake, thank you for joining.
Thank you. How you doing?
We're getting there. It's almost the end.
It's going well.
Thank you. So, why don't you tell everyone a bit about yourself and what it is you do?
Okay. Well, yeah, I work for ESET Antivirus. I've been with them for about a year and a half. But previous to that, I was with the police force down in Dorset for 14 years. I did a range of jobs for the police, so digital forensics, and then I joined the cybercrime team. That's when I met Lisa Forte, who you had on earlier. We did quite a lot together. And so similar to her, I go out and I talk about the safety and security that people need to be aware of in the cybersecurity world. And that's talking to a range of people, usually people who have no idea. So I like to do talks all over the place. And I also get to speak to some great journalists who get to use a couple of my comments and some of the pieces they're writing. So really I want to spread the good word about what everyone's doing in this space, but also throw in a little bit of positivity and make it not such a dull subject that some people might think it is.
Awesome. So what kind of got you into InfoSec?
It's going to be my love started back in the day of, well, at university. I had no idea what to do. And my mum said to me, look, what do you love? And I said, I don't really know what I love. And she goes, well, if you love something, you'll do well in it. And I said, well, I love crime. I'm fascinated with crime. I've watched too many cop movies. And she said, well, that's it then. Why don't you go into crime? But then I thought, are you serious about that? And she said, no, not crime, but why don't you go into the police force? And I thought, that's not a bad shout. So I inundated my local police force with every job possibly going, and I didn't get any of them. I went for 9 jobs and got none. I then, yeah, I know. I felt pretty good. I got a phone call.
Special.
yeah, thanks very much, guys. But I then got a phone call from the HR team, and they said, hi, yeah, we've seen you go for quite a few jobs. We've got something that might not be what you're after. It's a filing job on very little money, and I saw my foot going into the door, and I said, I will take it. I am all over this. And so, yeah. And then a couple months later, I was chatting to who I didn't know was the commander of the station, and I went and sat next to him. And I said, so what do you do here then? And he looked at me and he said the famous words that I've always wanted someone to say to me. And he said, do you not know who I am? I said, no, I don't. While I'm eating my sandwich next to him. Everyone around started to move away and went, oh my God. And we suddenly just chatted so much. And he said, this is perfect timing. I'd love someone with your background. I did maths and a bit of computing at university. And he said, we need someone to look at the statistics around analysis of crime. I thought, yeah, hey, I'll give that a go. He gave me loads of training. And from that moment, I just loved it. And I carried on into then the computer crime department, which was high-tech crime back in those days. And I got so much training, and I just felt so happy in this space of also helping the public, but enjoying what I was doing and learning so much. Even though the money was rubbish, I thought this is excellent. And it just progressed into the last few years, which is basically more InfoSec, looking after cybersecurity. But it all comes back to that love of crime, I guess.
Right. A love of crime. Awesome. So now, looking back on that, is it a rough go for the police? Are they on the struggle bus?
Well, I hate to say it, but I think they are.
Yeah.
So one of the main reasons I left the high-tech crime unit, which became called the digital forensics unit, was because I looked back at the stats. I loved going to court, for example. I loved going to court with some evidence on a hard drive. Maybe it's a murder or whatever. And I got a real buzz from that. And then so I did 10 years in that team. Towards the end, I don't think I went to court for the last year. And I wondered why. And it's all because we are struggling as a police force with encryption, with the likes of Tor. They're using OSs that are just incredibly difficult to go and get digital evidence of. And it became such a difficulty. I felt really frustrated. They could throw some more money at it, but they're still going to have some serious problems. And I just felt that I wanted to continue helping the public, but I felt that I couldn't do it in the police anymore. So I wanted to move on And although I'm working for a huge company now, I'm not in sales. So I just go and spread the word about what people can do about how to stay safe online.
Brilliant. And so do you think like the police need to do more of that out of sort of community, get out there, talk to the businesses, talk to the people?
Yeah, and they are doing this.
They are, right?
Yeah, so they've got the cybercrime teams, and they started with these protect officers, and they're all over the country, and they are doing a great job. I know there are even Scott McCready earlier, he did a lot of help with them. And so there are some really good people out there doing some fantastic work. But yeah, it probably needs more people like that to do that prevention aspect. And it's great that it's coming from the unbiased police rather than a company doing it. But
Right.
there's only so far they can do, because when people have been hit, they want to go and blame someone.
Of course.
And sometimes the police get a bit of a hard time for this, I think. Sometimes they don't want to take on the responsibility themselves. Hence, the prevention is absolutely key, but they've got to be creative in how they're doing it. You've got to make people realize how important it really is. And so therefore, you've got to make it fun.
Definitely, because it needs to resonate. And if it's not fun and interesting and sort of connected, it's, and I think Sean used the term earlier about 28 hours ago when we started this thing, death by PowerPoint, right?
Yeah.
So now let me ask you a question. Is this cybersecurity awareness program that is happening, is it relevant to the threats that you see in 2020 and beyond?
Well, definitely with the smaller forces. So like Dorset, it's littered with SMEs. We've got loads of small companies that maybe have under 10 employees, of which they're all wearing many hats, as you're aware, and they don't really want to necessarily think about cybersecurity. They might be of an ilk that wants to stick their head in the sand. Right. And so those guys have got to be given tailored advice that doesn't upset them, doesn't scare them, but it makes them listen, and it doesn't have to necessarily have a price tag, because they'll usually just think, oh, it's going to cost too much money, or we haven't been hit yet, so whatever. But so it's a difficult mix, but it is working, and it is getting there. It's going to take time, and it's great when you get big companies working alongside forces, and programs like the Cyber Essentials, they can go and talk about to those people that really need it. I think that's a very good way of getting it across, but you have to make them listen in the first place.
What would you say to that young boy or young girl that's about 19 or 20, has good marks, is thinking about joining a regional police force? What do they need to know that they don't put in the brochure?
That's a tough one, because joining the police force is, I think, quite difficult if you want to go especially straight into that niche area.
Yeah, I mean, you never will, right? Like the usual thing is you on 3 or 4 years of general patrol, and then if you tell them that, oh, I really like water sports, they'll put you on high-level rescue. If you say you like high-level rescue, they'll put you on the scuba diving unit for body recovery, right?
Yeah, so
there's a certain sadism in police.
Yeah, if they really show that that passion for it, they probably will get heard. But it's so difficult to even join the police force. You have to have an array of skills.
Right.
I mean, the number one skill is communication, but you've got to prove in so many different areas that sometimes I think they're making it tough, because they want an all-rounder, an amazing person in every area to join, say, the regular police. But then not everyone is an all-rounder in everything. Right. And I went through it a different way. I just basically said, hey, you got to hire me. I just want to do anything. I don't know if that would necessarily work nowadays. I think it's possibly easier to go and get known first. And I think getting out there, I mean, with the likes of Twitter, blogging, vlogging, there's so many platforms, way more than when I started out in 2004, to get your views out there. And if you get known, I think there's probably more chance that if you were to then throw in your name, it might be noticed. And that goes for private and public, I guess.
Yeah. But isn't it true, though, you also have to have a deep, strong desire to be paid a pittance in comparison to what you would make in the private sector?
Yeah, I think that's the payoff, but it didn't. But it didn't bug me because
No.
I really did feel like I was giving back to the community. You know,
Yeah.
going to court for my first time. I mean, at the time I was so nervous, but looking back, you know, it's a fantastic experience. I did feel at the time that I'm doing something good, and especially when you're dealing with people that
criminal.
have committed
Yeah.
horrendous child offences, and you might be so nervous against a jury of 12 people who are thinking, you know, what the hell's going on here? And I get to go and deliver that evidence for them to make up their minds. That really is part of the system in the UK, that when it works right, obviously it doesn't always, but when it works right, it feels so good. And you come back, classic, get the donuts out, you put someone away for the right amount of time and help towards that investigation. It's a huge team effort. That's amazing. And you don't necessarily get that in the private world. I mean, I've only been in the private world, what, 18 months, but
Right.
You get that family feel. The very few people leave the cops. And the amount of people in the cops are saying, well, why are you going? What's going on? You haven't done 35 years. This is odd. Because you don't, and therefore it becomes a family. And I love that family feel that you get there.
Yeah.
And so
The
you
camaraderie.
don't necessarily care about the cash.
So it's interesting because we talked to Hacker Fantastic and we've talked to a few other people about sort of law enforcement and the challenges in law enforcement.
Yeah.
But there is certain training that you get in law enforcement, like digital forensics and intelligence, criminal intelligence, that you really can't get anywhere else. And those skills become very highly paid civilian skills.
Yeah. I've loved all my courses. Yeah, that's absolutely right. There's some really good training programs out there that if you look at, some of them you can do privately, but those prices are...
Oh yeah, Tottingham's OSI Int course is like 5,000 quid. Yeah.
You just have to put your hand up. If you want that, you just put your hand up and say, hey, I've got an idea. And they go, yeah, right, what are you doing in 3 weeks' time? You're going away for a week. And
That's right.
I love that.
Yeah. Suck up as much training as you can.
Absolutely. And they are really heavy on, I mean, not only that, they are fantastic at annual leave and flexi time, which is always a winner, which you don't get in the private world.
And free bus rides, right? Free TFL. Or you pay 50 quid and then you can go anywhere, right? Something?
I don't know about that.
There are some good deals.
So
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, there are deals in some restaurants, but I wouldn't ever always show my identity cards if you're in some restaurants, because it might come out with something else in it.
Yeah,
the one thing I wanted to ask is, so we've had a few people on talking about partnership between the police and the private sector. Do you think that's improving?
I don't know. I got asked this question the other day, actually, by a regional cybercrime team, and he was getting quite stressed with the tech world. He was saying, come on, you're all pretending that you're all into CSR. Let's all actually work together. But we were discussing that at the end of the day, companies are there to make money. And if people in positions don't make their quota for whatever length of time, then they are going to possibly get moved on for not making that, or at least be told, right, you've now got to make X amount in this amount of time. It's not the same in the public world. It's very difficult to align those two together. The public and the private, it's going to be difficult to make them all work together. You can get them around a meeting, that's fantastic, but they've both got different agendas. And so it'll always have those discrepancies and difficulties.
Okay, interesting. Some really interesting stuff. Is there anything that we could do to help, perhaps?
What, with working with the police forces? I guess these businesses, they want to hear fun stories. And there's only so far you can go and talk about the police. If you were to go and give an interesting story, and that's basically where I like to go in when I do my talks now, is go and give an easy to digest story that has a message at the end, And there are loads of guys that you've been speaking to today that are so fantastic at doing this. Yeah, so if those people, and I still offer myself to the local police force, if they ever want someone else to go in, and that is helpful because they don't always have the experience of the private world in what they're offering. Yes, they've got some great stories about, busting a murderer. Actually, on that, I will just say,
cleaning vomit out of the back of your police car at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's always fun.
I want to say, while I'm here, the funniest story I can ever tell you of when I was given a hard drive. Well, actually, it was a laptop. It was covered in blood, and they said, "Look, we've got a murder. We're pretty sure that this guy has done it. He's been caught with an axe or something similar, I think it was. But can you get any evidence off this computer just to add to it?" And I said, "Well, yeah. I mean, there it's bagged. I get the gloves on. I get the hard drive out." And I thought, well, I'll check the logs, see if it was turned on. And I did so. It was turned on at the time of the alleged offence. I then realised that he'd been on Google. And so I thought, I wonder what he was searching for.
No.
I kid you not.
Yeah.
He had Googled, how do I get rid of a dead body?
Or how do I kill someone with an axe?
Yeah. I'm not joking. And by the way, if you Google that, you get some very funny blogs. So obviously we had to, and there were some really interesting things.
But and it's funny because in the U.S. justice system or Canadian justice system, you'd be able to plead out on that kind of evidence, right? Like you wouldn't even end up probably going to trial. But in the U.K., it's a bit different, right? There's no sort of judicial negotiation. Is that correct?
Well, it depends. They can go no comment right the way up to the trial. Right. So then you have to go with the trial. But at any moment, if they say guilty, then they lose some time off their jail time. Okay. So if you say guilty straight away, it's usually around 30%, 33% off your
let's be clear. Brian Wilton would be the person that would be pleading on our behalf.
No comment.
No comment.
But then if you, so straight after all the initial interviews, between then and up to the trial, you usually get around 10% off. But it's all to do with how much time everyone's spent on the case. And then if they're still saying that they are completely innocent, and then the trial goes ahead, then it has to. But it depends on whether I'm called for court back then. With the evidence, because I would always give the evidence to the case and they would read through it, and it would be up to the defense team to decide if they want me to go and present it. And sometimes they're looking for the discrepancies or mistakes I may have made in an evidence pack.
Yeah.
I mean, the smallest of things. I got caught up once because I'd said that it was out of 5 pages, but it was only out of 4. And they'll try and pick you out on those little bits and say, look, if you can't add to 5, then can you really do digital forensics? I mean, it's a good question, but this is the kind of thing that would go on in court. But I kind of like that because it's like theatre.
So there was this huge hack that hit one of the primary digital forensics firms that the police had outsourced to. How devastating is that for investigations?
Well, yeah, you can imagine the defense team would just be lapping that up. Yeah. They would be trying to find out if their evidence has been outsourced to that said company. Right. And then if it had, they would be high-fiving their client and saying, I think we got this. So, yeah, I wouldn't want to be working in that company at that time, put it that way.
Just for those who aren't aware what that was, there was a third-party contractor where evidence was sent to that had a ransomware attack. So that's obviously not good, because one of the things touted against that is, hey, someone changed these files, so how can we guarantee that the evidence is...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll look for anything to get you out. I mean, that's quite big. And all they've got to do is look to the jury, and this is what they would do because it's theatre. They'd look to the jury and eye roll and say, wow, look what happened over there. And it gets those people just thinking, and it's all about beyond reasonable doubt to get that person prosecuted.
Right.
Cool. Listen, Jake, really quickly, and I have been listening in whilst trying to herd my children. You're yet another guest we've had on BeerCon One that's got a far more cool job than I've got. So I applaud you for that, and I applaud everybody else that's got a far more
professional
cool job.
lunch eater.
Yeah.
That's what I am.
But but you do it with such grace. But yeah, time is now up. So on behalf of the beer farmers and the people listening, it's been a really fascinating testimony that you've given, and we really appreciate you giving us your time.
Well,
so thank you.
I thank you, and I appreciate being on here. It's fantastic amongst all these fantastic names.
Well,
keep it up, guys. Only a few hours to go.
Yep, fantastic, mate. Thank you very much indeed.